Chris says, Miss Selner, I will forever be grateful for what you did for me. However, I don't think we're on joking terms. You think someone's capable of killing me? Are you serious right now? She says the information she's about to tell him came to her in a dream. She says, in the dream, you were surrounded by men who were. Chris cuts her off and says, did you really fly all the way here just because of some silly dream you had? I know all about your former profession. Some people think that you came to possess a unique ability after you awakened, because you used to be psychic. I am a national level hunter, which means nobody can kill me. Miss Selner tries to explain. She says, but in my dream, I clearly saw. But he interjects again, saying, not that damn dream again. Okay, fine. Let's just say I believe you. Who should I ask for help then? Are you saying there's someone out there who can protect me, a national level hunter? There's nothing that can be done. Miss Selner replies, we think there might be someone who can help you. Sung Jinwoo, a hunter of his caliber, could provide you with protection. Sung Jinwoo, he says, as the point of view switches back to Sung Jinwoo. We see Sung Jinwoo leaving the gate headed back to Earth. He thinks to himself, the king had to be killed. I made the right call. Even though he was shackled in special chains, I was overwhelmed by his power. If I had freedom and allowed him to venture outside the gates, then I'm just glad I saw through him before it happened. Then thinking about everything he just learned, he realized, I have to become stronger. News of the Giants' defeat at the hands of Sung Jinwoo spread quickly across the world. Social media blew up with posts speculating the emergence of a new national level hunter. But unlike during the Jeju Island raid, Koreans weren't the only ones talking about the possibility this time. And that one giant who had made it across the sea was defeated by Liu Zhizhang. Matsumoto, the chairman of the Japanese Hunters Association, turned himself in, and whether or not it was to take responsibility for his actions is unclear. Meanwhile, on the other side of the globe, in the state of Maryland, a party organized by the US government was being held for a group of American hunters who had successfully completed the S-rank raid. The bald hunter says maybe it's because the gate was an S rank, but it looks like the government spent a pretty penny on this party. The other hunter says, yeah, I know, right? It wasn't even that hard. They're both approached by Thomas Andre, who's towering over them, saying, there you are. You guys still remember our bet, right? You owe me a yacht, you owe me a house, and you... What did you bet again? The bald one says, I didn't bet anything. Thomas Andre says, that's a nice looking tie you got there. He says, I didn't bet. He said, I want your tie. The point of view switches to Thomas Andre talking to his assistant, and he indeed got that tie. He asks her, how do you like my tie? She says, it looks expensive, but it doesn't exactly go with your Hawaiian shirt. Yeah, that's what I thought, he says, and tosses on the floor. She says, but never mind that, we have a problem. The list of guilds invited to this year's International Guild Conference was just released, and it includes the Ajin Guild from South Korea. He says, Ajin Guild? Yes, she says, it's the guild founded by Sung Jinwoo. Thomas Andre smiles a devilish grin, adjusts his glasses, and said, well, I guess we'll be coming to the States then. Point of view switches back to Sung Jinwoo, who's assessing the new additions to his army. He says, it's too bad that one of them crossed the ocean, but I still managed to improve my strength through battle, referring to the giants. Some nearby soldiers were watching the whole thing in awe, saying, wow, how did he do that? Is that Sung Jinwoo's ability? Jinho thinks to himself, everyone is always surprised when they see Sung Jinwoo's powers for the first time. A woman approaches Jinho with the phone telling him someone's trying to reach him, which kind of worries him because who's ever trying to reach Jinho? He answers the phone, announces himself, and immediately breaks into a cold sweat. He tells Jinwoo, sorry sir, but I have to go back to Korea, and Jinwoo says, did something happen? He replies, I don't know the details either, but I was just told to fly home because of a family emergency. The lady offers to take Jinho to the airport and they part ways. Jinho thinks to himself, I've never heard mother's voice shake that badly. I wonder what happened. No, I shouldn't think about it too much. It might not be anything serious. The point of view switches to the Icheon International Airport where Jinho is met by his father's assistant. There's a car parked out in the front, Jinho. Please, come with me. You must stay strong in times like these, and I'll explain everything on our way. He says, it's a long story, but your father has fallen into an eternal slumber. And now at the airport, Jinho starts freaking out because he's never seen his father like this. His assistant tells him he mustn't get too close. Hunters who can't control their mana will only worsen his condition. Jinho says, I see, well, I guess all I'll ever be is his useless son. His assistant hands him a book, and Jinho says, what is this? He says something the chairman was working on just before he lost consciousness. I've been holding on to it in case he asks for it when he wakes up, but I think you need it more than I do right now. He opens the book to find newspaper clippings of him and Sung Jinwoo's adventures, but mostly him. Jinho chuckles to himself and says, they say the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, and it looks like he also has a habit of keeping a scrapbook of news articles he likes. His aide says he saved everything related to the tournaments, exhibitions, and competitions that your older sister and brother participated in, as well as your most recent achievements, and we see a whole bunch of newspaper clippings about Jinho and the Ajin Guild. He says, not that the chairman didn't love you, he just had high expectations because he loved you so much. Jinho starts to break down and the aide says, let's head home for now. As they're walking out, Jinho suddenly felt a tap on the back of his neck. But when he looks back, there's nobody and nothing there. As they walk away further down the hall, you can see a faint shimmer in the air. Sung Jinwoo slowly begins to remove his invisibility and says, "What's with the waterworks, Jinho? You're breaking my heart." Still partially invisible, he looks down at Mr. Yo's sleeping body. Then he summons the elixir of life and pops the cork. The point of view switches to the entrance of the hospital where Jinhee, Jinho's sister, just arrived. As she's running frantically into the building, Sung Jinwoo is making his exit. She notices him right away, but she's too worried about her father to do anything about it. She walks into her father's room to find him fully awake and looking better than ever. And the sight of her now healthy father made her spontaneously combust into tears of joy and relief. Mr. Yo is now surrounded by a team of doctors who are astounded at this medical miracle. He says, "You're saying I woke up from eternal slumber?" The doctor says, "A patient that actually woke up from eternal slumber, that's simply unheard of. Media Day will have a field day with this when they find out about it." We're shown Sung Jinwoo watching from outside, and he turns around and smiles at his handiwork. "I know it's a bit early, but happy birthday, Jinho." Sung Jinwoo decides that he should head back to Japan to wrap things up, but he realizes he still has about 2 hours on the cooldown time to use Shadow Exchange. So he thinks to himself, what should I do for the next few hours? Now that I have some free time, I'm not sure what to do with it. I don't even have anyone to call. And he has a brief flashback of his last conversation with Cha Hae-in where he asked her if she was interested in him. He thinks about it for a second and then he decides, maybe I should go looking for a dungeon that hasn't been claimed yet. The point of view switches to the mansion of national level hunter Chris Reed. He's having a hard time sleeping and he doesn't really know why, but he feels like something's not right. So he gets up to take a walk around the mansion to see what's going on. He thinks to himself, it's quiet, too quiet. Then he grabs a glass of wine and tosses it at a wall. And although it shatters, he doesn't hear a sound. He says, "A wine glass broke, but I didn't hear a single thing." Now a little bit worried, he thinks to himself, what is going on? He then yells into the abyss, "Who's there?" Then he recalls the deputy director giving him the chairman of the Korean Hunters Association, Go Gun Hee's number to put him in touch with Sung Jinwoo. He thinks to himself, did he foresee this? Suddenly a man appears at the end of the corridor. In a very stylish fashion, might I add. Bro got that shit on. Then suddenly 2 shadowy figures pop out from behind him. Chris asks, "Who are you guys?" The intruder at the bottom of the staircase says, "You will gain nothing from going easy on the humans, oh fragment of brilliant light." A beast language, Chris thinks to himself, and he says, "What the hell are you talking about?" The man at the bottom of the stairs says, "Shh, I wasn't talking to you. It was meant for the one up there who's connected to you." "Do I look like a joke to you?" Chris says as mana begins to envelop his body. He slowly begins to transform into some form involving fire and his clothes are singed off his body. And the more he transforms, the more he begins to look like a ruler. He says, "At least one of you will die by my hands today." The other 2 intruders say, "A spiritual body manifestation? By a mere human?" Suddenly Chris, or whatever he's transformed into, launches himself at them and says, "Die, you damn beast." And his mansion erupts in a sea of fire. The point of view switches back to Sung Jinwoo, who's being chauffeured through Japan while going through his new stats, items, inventory, all the good stuff. His driver says, "All these people are gathered here just to get a glimpse of you, Mr. Sung. Although we don't have an exact number, I think there are over 100,000 people lined up along the streets." Sung Jinwoo thinks to himself, I guess this is my last day in Japan. Biru whispers in his ear, "My king, your subjects are here to pay their respects. Perhaps you should acknowledge them by raising your hand." He responds, "You got it all wrong, Biru." The point of view switches to the plane ride home where Sung Jinwoo says, "What are the chances of sitting next to a familiar face on a plane?" And that familiar face being the representative from the FBH that he met a while ago. He responds, "It would be great if you thought that, but I know you won't believe me." "So, we meet again, Mr. Adam White," Sung Jinwoo says. "I see you still remember me even though we only met once. It's an honor to see you again, Mr. Sung." Jinwoo thinks to himself, honestly it was Biru who reminded him his name, and Biru said, "My king, this Adam White. You mustn't get his name wrong this time. You must uphold the dignity as a king." Side note, not Biru coaching this man through human relations. Jinwoo says, "I thought the negotiations fell through." And Mr. White responds, "I know that it's rude of me to show up without notice, but I have an urgent matter to discuss with you. Is the United States having trouble with their S-rank gate too?" Mr. Adams says, "No, we dealt with that already." He pulls out a laptop and says, "Please take a look at this." On the screen we see the residence of Chris Reed still on fire from a few days before. Firefighters on scene are talking about how this is no ordinary fire and nothing they do will put out the spark. Jinwoo asks, "What is this video?" Adams says, "If you watch to the end, you'll see that the man who started the fire was Christopher Reed, one of the national level hunters. 1,800 firefighters and 14 of our highest ranking mage type hunters were mobilized to put out the fire." Jinwoo says, "Those flames looked intense. There must have been some kind of conflict. Does that mean Christopher is..." Mr. Adams simply nods his head yes. Much to our disbelief, he'd already been killed when we found him. We're shown Adam burned to a crisp with holes in his chest. Adam suddenly pulls a picture out of his pocket and says, "This is the photo of the man whom the Federal Bureau of Hunters believes is a prime suspect," with that photo being a picture of his father, Sung Il-wan. At the mirror side of the photo, Sung Jinwoo immediately uses commander's authority on Adam. He says, "Is this some kind of joke? If it is, you won't make it out alive." Security gets up to help Adam, but he tells him, "Don't, stand back." He explains, "The man in the photo emerged from a dungeon, so he might not be the person you're thinking of." Who says, "A dungeon?" Adam says the mana waves he emitted were like those of a magic beast, and he also attacked one of our S-rank hunters out of nowhere. You remember the explosion that went off at the Bureau's headquarters a few months ago? I'm talking about the incident that had the whole world talking. Jinwoo replies, "Are you saying that was my father's doing?" Releases Adam and he falls to the floor gasping for air. Still struggling to breathe, Adam says he disappeared after knocking out a few of our hunters, and since then we've been searching for him behind closed doors. But we haven't been able to find any traces of him. It's as if he vanished into thin air. I understand how you feel, Mr. Sung, but there's a reason why he's been pegged as a prime suspect. He ticks all the boxes. Jinwoo replies, "Then why did you show me this photo?" He says, "Because at the upcoming International Guild Conference, where the representatives of all the major guilds from around the world will gather, the Federal Bureau of Hunters is planning to issue a red notice for this man. In other words, our investigation will no longer be carried out behind closed doors." While looking at the picture of his father given to him by Mr. Allen, he ponders the information he just received. Allen said because this recent incident cost the US government a national level hunter, they'll do whatever it takes to capture the culprit. However, we at the Federal Bureau would like to maintain a good relationship with you, Mr. Sung. That's why I came to give you a heads up before the investigation goes public. I'm sure you would have been shocked if your father's face had popped up during the conference. Jinwoo thinks to himself, my father went missing 10 years ago and returned as a magic beast? One of Allen's aides checks on him because he's still struggling from being strangled by Sung Jinwoo. Tells him he's fine, he's just still a little bit weak. He thinks to himself, could he use telekinesis? High-ranking mage hunters can only move objects at best, but he's on a totally different level. I thought only national level hunters could wield such powerful telekinesis. It suddenly dawns on him that Sung Jinwoo is the 6th national level hunter, and he thinks to himself, I must inform the deputy director as soon as possible. International Guild Conference is an important event where representative guilds from each company are invited to discuss current trends and future prospects of the hunter industry. A few days later, the Federal Bureau of Hunters released a list of invited guilds, and the Asian Guild was selected to represent South Korea this year, and their participation made headlines both home and abroad. Asian's only top-ranking hunter was their guild master Sung Jinwoo, so the Federal Bureau's decision to invite them was basically an official seal of approval. They had recognized that Sung Jinwoo alone was strong enough to rival all the other guilds with top-notch hunters. Point of view switches to a press conference in Korea where Mr. Choi is being interviewed about not being selected for the International Guild Conference. The interviewer says, everyone's talking about the fact that the Asian Guild was invited to represent South Korea at this year's International Guild Conference instead of the Hunters Guild. As the guild master of the Hunters Guild, what are your thoughts on this matter, Mr. Choi? Responds, the Federal Bureau of Hunters made the obvious choice. The interviewer responds, they made the obvious choice, not understandable? Mr. Choi doubles down, yes, I believe it was the obvious choice. Isn't the Asian Guild basically just one person? Mr. Choi responds, yes, but in this case, that one person is Sung Jinwoo. We define a guild member as someone who belongs to a guild and can be mobilized for battle, then Sung Jinwoo already has hundreds of guild members. Someone who has witnessed his capabilities firsthand on several different occasions, including during the Jeju Island incident, I believe the Asian Guild would give any guild in the world a run for their money. The interviewer replies, still, the Hunters Guild has always represented South Korea at the International Guild Conference. It's gotta sting a little bit. Jong replies, of course, I'm disappointed that our trip to the States fell through. I even had passports renewed. With that being said, I feel more proud than disappointed. We now have a hunter who won't hesitate to take the front lines if we ever come face to face with a beast we can't handle. In fact, my guild members and I only made it back alive because of Sung Jinwoo's help. So I am genuinely proud that he was chosen as South Korea's representative. The reviewer wraps up his comments and Mr. Choi leaves the stage. On his way out, one of his assistants gives him an update. He tells him we managed to snag a permit for the gate that spawned in Suseo this morning. It's an A-rank gate, but the mana levels aren't that high. Mr. Choi asks, did the Asian Guild apply for a permit this time or did they pass up the opportunity again? He replies, they didn't apply, it's been a little bit too quiet lately. Mr. Choi thinks to himself, it's been 4 days since Sung Jinwoo got back from Japan, but that dungeon destroyer hasn't showed up at any gates. All the major guilds are celebrating. I'm not like Bak Yoon-ho from the White Tigers Guild, or like Lim Tae-gyu from the Fiend Guild. After all, jumping for joy just because an apple fell from a tree makes us no different than monkeys. His assistant blurts out, but now that we don't have to compete with the Asian Guild, our profits have increased by 40%. To which he replies, I found another monkey. His assistant says, sorry? And he was like, never mind. Does the association know anything? Mr. Choi thinks to himself, before his rank reevaluation, he used to clear 3 or 4 low rank gates a day. And after becoming an S rank, he even raided gates that spawned in other guilds' districts. And just recently, he flew to Japan to single-handedly shut down an S rank dungeon break. So it's strange that there's been no movements from him. Point of view switches to the Hunters Association of Korea, where Mr. Go just received some news. Mr. Woo says someone from China requested information on Sung Jinwoo. Go says information, like personal information? Says no, nothing like that. Requested public documents such as relevant news articles published on Mr. Sung in his raid records. Mr. Go says, I see. Well, I'm sure China didn't expect us to give him access to top-ranking Hunters' personal information. Why are they suddenly showing an interest in Sung Jinwoo? He made it very clear to them that he's not willing to accept offers from other countries. Mr. Wu says the request wasn't made by the Chinese government, it was actually from an individual. Mr. Go is like, an individual? Seems China's 7-star hunter Liu Zhuzhang has taken an interest in Sung Jinwoo. Then the narrator tells us China doesn't follow the international standard for ranking hunters. Instead, they use their own ranking system. Hunters with 5 stars are considered the highest rank, but just one hunter, Liu Zhuzhang, was given a 7-star rank. Mr. Go says the Liu Zhuzhang is interested in Sung Jinwoo. Mr. Wu responds, yes, as you know, he fought one of the giant-type beasts. Perhaps that's why he's taking an interest in Sung Jinwoo, who killed the rest of the giants. Mr. Go thinks to himself, I suppose the strong recognize the strong. Deny his requests, or send him surface-level information. Point of view switches to the Scavenger Guild, where Thomas Andre's assistant brings some news on Sung Jinwoo. She tells him that Sung Jinwoo will be arriving for the conference tomorrow. He replies, already? Shit, time sure flew by. In walks another visitor. He says, you called me, sir? Thomas Andre says, ooh, nice timing, come on in. Something I need to tell you, and I'll get straight to the point. Don't mess with Sung Jinwoo under any circumstances. It's revealed to us that the visitor is none other than Hwang Dong-soo, who looks visibly pissed off at hearing the name Sung Jinwoo. He says, I know what happened between Sung Jinwoo and your brother. I'm sure you have your suspicions, and you're curious to know what exactly went down. Hwang's eyes start glowing red, and he says, but before he can get another word out, Thomas Andre reaches forward as if he's going to attack him, and his aura is just like oozing through the room. Just as he reached his face, he stopped short and pointed a finger at him. I don't recall giving you permission to speak. And now in a cold sweat, Hwang stands completely silent. Thomas Andre's assistant is watching this whole thing. She thinks to himself, please, just keep your mouth shut. How many people can give a threatening warning to a high-ranking hunter? He sure is impressive. However, Hwang Dong-soo is just as obsessive as Thomas when it comes to hunting down his target. He repeats himself one final time. Do not mess with Sung Jinwoo. Go on a vacation at the guild's villa during the conference or something, hang out, find some hoes, do all that. What do you say? Will you accept my earnest request? Hwang pauses for a second and ponders the situation. Thomas Andre says, Mr. Hwang? He says, alright. Good, you may leave now. And Hwang wastes no time walking out the door. After the elevator doors close, his assistant says, do you think he'll listen? Thomas says no. He's not gonna let that go that easily. Keep a close eye on Mr. Hwang until Sung Jinwoo leaves the States, Laura. And she responds, will he accept that? Thomas Andre says, well, I'm sure he'd rather be a bit frustrated than dead.